The alarm bells rang across the space station orbiting Earth. Captain Roy Jackson rushed to the command center, his boots echoing in the metal hallways. The red lights flashed everywhere, making his heart beat faster. "What's happening?" Roy asked. As he reached the control room, Linda Price, his tactical officer, looked up from her computer screen. Her face was pale. "Sir, we're getting readings from the edge of our solar system. Something big is coming." Roy moved to the main display screen. The numbers made his blood turn cold. 500 ships. Each one was massive, bigger than anything humans had ever built. They were moving toward Earth at incredible speed. "Are you sure about these readings?" Roy asked. Pete Walker, the chief engineer, nodded. "I've checked 3 times, Captain. The computers aren't wrong. It's the Draconian fleet." Everyone in the room went quiet. The Draconian Empire was the most feared force in the galaxy. They had destroyed entire worlds. Their ships were like floating cities, filled with weapons that could crack planets in half. Roy grabbed the communication device. "Get me Earth Command immediately." Back on Earth, President Jake Morrison was having breakfast with his family when the emergency call came. His wife looked worried as he answered the phone. "Mr. President, we have a situation," came the voice of General Lisa Hayes. "You need to get to the White House right now." Jake kissed his wife goodbye and rushed to his car. The drive to the White House felt like the longest trip of his life. When he arrived, the Situation Room was already full of people. General Hayes stood at the front of the room with Admiral Ben Carter. Behind them was a huge screen showing the approaching alien fleet. "How long do we have?" Jake asked. 3 days, sir," Admiral Carter replied. "Maybe less if they decide to speed up." Jake looked at the screen. The alien ships looked like giant metal monsters floating in space. Each one was dark gray with sharp edges. They moved in perfect formation, like a pack of wolves hunting their prey. "What are our options?" Jake asked. General Hayes cleared her throat. "Mr. President, I won't lie to you. We have 50 ships in our entire fleet. The aliens have 500. Our weapons are older. Their technology is far ahead of ours." "So you're saying we can't win?" "I'm saying it would be a miracle if we survive." The first hour of battle, Admiral Carter said quietly. Jake sat down heavily in his chair. He thought about his children, his wife, and all the people on Earth who were counting on him. "There has to be something we can do." That's when Dr. Elena Rodriguez spoke up. She was a small woman with dark hair and bright eyes. She worked for the Advanced Defense Initiative, Earth's secret science program. "Mr. President, I might have an idea," she said. "It's crazy, but it might work." Everyone turned to look at her. Jake motioned for her to continue. "The Draconian ships are powerful because they use quantum technology. But quantum systems have a weakness. They don't work well with electromagnetic fields." "What are you saying?" General Hayes asked. "Earth has something no other planet has. Our magnetic field is unique. It's stronger and more complex than any other world the Draconians have attacked. We might be able to use it as a weapon." Admiral Carter shook his head. "That's impossible. How could we control something that big?" Dr. Rodriguez pulled out a tablet and showed them her plans. "We've been working on this for years. We have satellites that can create electromagnetic pulses. If we can get the alien ships in the right position, we can overload their systems." "And if it doesn't work?" Jake asked. "Then we die fighting," Dr. Rodriguez said simply. Jake looked around the room at all the faces staring at him. These people had families too. They had lives and dreams just like everyone else on Earth. "How long do you need to set this up?" he asked. 2 days, Dr. Rodriguez replied. "Maybe less if we work around the clock." Jake stood up. "Then we do it. General Hayes, I want every ship we have ready for battle. Admiral Carter, coordinate with all the other countries. Everyone fights together, or we all die together. Meanwhile, in space, the Draconian fleet continued its approach. Admiral Vex Korath stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dark Destroyer. He was tall and covered in scales, with red eyes that glowed in the dim light. How much longer until we reach the human world? He asked his second-in-command. 3 Earth days, Admiral, came the reply. Korath smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Good. I want to see the fear in their eyes when they realize how hopeless their situation is. He had conquered 47 worlds using this same fleet. Every species had tried to fight. Every species had failed. Humans would be no different. Prepare the surrender message, Korath ordered. Tell them they have 24 hours to give up their planet, or we will destroy every living thing on it. Back on Earth, Captain Roy Jackson received new orders. He was to take his ship, the Defender, and lead a small group of vessels to meet the alien fleet. It wasn't about winning. It was about buying time for Dr. Rodriguez to prepare her plan. Roy called his crew together. They were good people, brave people. They knew they might not survive what was coming. We're going to face the most dangerous enemy in the galaxy, Roy told them. But we're not going to run. We're going to show them what humans are made of. Linda Price raised her hand. Captain, what if we can't stop them? Roy looked at each face in the room. Then we make sure they remember that Earth didn't go down without a fight. The next morning, President Jake Morrison stood before the cameras to address the world. People in every country watched as their leader spoke. My fellow humans, he began, we face a threat unlike any in our history. But we will not surrender. We will not give up. We will fight for our home, our families, and our future. As Jake spoke, Dr. Rodriguez worked frantically in her laboratory. She had less than 2 days to save the world. Her team worked without sleeping, checking and rechecking every calculation. High above Earth, the Draconian fleet grew larger in the sky. Soon, people could see the ships with their naked eyes. They looked like dark stars moving slowly across the heavens. Children pointed at them from their windows. Parents held their families close. Everyone wondered if they would live to see another sunrise. But in the secret facilities around the world, humans prepared for war. They loaded weapons, charged energy cells, and said goodbye to their loved ones. They were scared, but they were ready. The greatest battle in human history was about to begin. The message came from space at exactly noon. Every television, radio, and computer screen on Earth showed the same thing. A tall alien with red eyes and dark scales appeared on the screen. I am Admiral Vex Korath of the Draconian Empire, the creature said in perfect English. Your world now belongs to us. You have 24 hours to surrender completely. If you refuse, we will destroy every city, every building, and every living thing on your planet. The alien's voice was cold and emotionless. We have conquered 47 worlds. No species has ever survived our attack. Do not be the 48th to die for nothing. The screen went black. Around the world, people stared in shock and fear. Children cried. Adults held each other tight. Everyone wondered if this was the end of everything they knew. In the White House, President Jake Morrison watched the message with his advisors. When it ended, the room was silent for a long moment. Well, Jake said finally, I guess we have our answer. General Lisa Hayes stood up. Mr. President, I recommend we evacuate all major cities immediately. If we're going to fight, we need to save as many people as possible. Do it, Jake agreed. But make sure everyone knows we're not giving up. We're buying time, not running away. Colonel Amy Stewart was put in charge of the evacuation. She worked with leaders from every country to move millions of people away from the cities. It was the biggest movement of people in human history. Move the children first, Amy ordered her teams. Then the elderly. Everyone else helps with the evacuation. Meanwhile, Dr. Elena Rodriguez worked day and night in her laboratory. She had created a network of satellites around Earth that could control the planet's magnetic field. But she needed more time to make sure everything worked perfectly. How much longer? Asked her assistant, Dr. Carl Roberts. 18 hours. Elena replied, wiping sweat from her forehead. Maybe less if we're lucky. Dr. Marie Clark, the team's physicist, looked up from her computer. Elena, the power requirements are enormous. We're talking about using the entire planet as a weapon. I know, Elena said, but it's our only chance. In space, Admiral Ben Carter prepared the human fleet for battle. 50 ships against 500. The odds were terrible, but they had to try. Captain Roy Jackson's ship, the Defender, led the advance group. His crew was nervous, but determined. Linda Price checked the weapon systems for the 10th time. All systems ready, Captain, she reported. Good. Roy replied. Pete, how are the engines? Engineer Pete Walker nodded. Running at full power, sir. We're as ready as we'll ever be. Lieutenant Commander Greg Adams commanded the stealth ships. These were smaller, faster vessels equipped with Dr. Rodriguez's new electromagnetic weapons. They were untested, but they were humanity's best hope. Remember, Roy told his captains over the radio, we're not trying to win this battle. We're trying to survive long enough for Dr. Rodriguez to activate her plan. The Draconian fleet entered Earth's orbital space like a dark cloud. Each ship was the size of a small city, bristling with weapons that could destroy entire continents. Admiral Korth stood on his bridge, watching the pathetic human fleet approach. Only 50 ships? This will be over in minutes. Admiral, his second-in-command said, the humans are not retreating. They're actually coming toward us. Korth laughed. Brave but stupid. Destroy them all. The first battle began near the moon. The Draconian ships fired massive energy beams that lit up space like artificial suns. The human ships dodged and weaved, trying to avoid the deadly attacks. Roy's ship shook as an energy blast passed close by. Return fire. He shouted. The human weapons hit the alien ships, but barely scratched their shields. It was like throwing rocks at a tank. This isn't working, Linda said. Our weapons can't penetrate their defenses. And we try something else, Roy replied. He opened the communication channel to all human ships. All vessels, use the asteroids for cover. Make them come to us. The human fleet scattered among the asteroids near the moon. The Draconian ships followed, firing constantly. Several human ships were destroyed in the first few minutes, but then Lieutenant Commander Adams and his stealth ships struck. They came from behind the asteroids, firing Dr. Rodriguez's electromagnetic weapons. The alien ship's shields flickered and sparked. It's working, Greg shouted over the radio. The electromagnetic weapons are disrupting their systems. For the first time, the Draconian ships showed damage. Their perfect formations began to break apart as some ships lost power temporarily. Admiral Korth was furious. What is happening? To our ships? Unknown weapons, Admiral, his technical officer reported. They're using some kind of electromagnetic pulse that interferes with our quantum systems. Impossible, Korth growled. Humans don't have that technology. But the evidence was right in front of him. His mighty fleet was taking damage from what he had thought were primitive vessels. On Earth, Dr. Rodriguez watched the battle on her screens. The electromagnetic weapons were working, but not well enough. The alien ships were adapting quickly. We need to activate the main plan now, she told her team. But we're not ready, Dr. Roberts protested. The calculations aren't complete. We? Don't have time for perfect, Elena replied. The fleet is taking heavy losses. She was right. In the first hour of battle, humanity had lost 15 ships. The aliens had only lost 3. At this rate, the human fleet would be gone in 4 hours. Commander Nick Turner coordinated the defense from inside a mountain bunker. He watched the battle through satellite feeds, his heart breaking as he saw ship after ship destroyed. "Get me Admiral Carter," he ordered. When Ben Carter's face appeared on the screen, Nick could see the exhaustion and determination in his eyes. "Admiral, how much longer can you hold out?" "Maybe 3 hours," Ben replied. "My ships are fighting bravely, but we're outgunned. Dr. Rodriguez says she needs 2 more hours. Then we'll give her 2 more hours, even if it kills us all." The battle raged on. Human ships used every trick they could think of. They hid behind space debris, used the moon's gravity to slingshot past enemy ships, and even rammed alien vessels when their weapons failed. Captain Roy Jackson's ship had taken heavy damage. Half his crew was injured, and the ship's systems were failing. "Captain," Linda reported, "we're down to 20% power." "Then we use what we have," Roy replied. "Pete, can you give me 1 more engine burst?" "I can try, sir," Pete said, working frantically on the damaged systems. Roy looked at tactical display. The alien fleet was moving into position around Earth. Soon they would be close enough to bombard the planet's surface. "All ships," Roy broadcast. "We need to draw them closer, make them think we're beaten." It was the hardest thing any of them had ever done. The human ships pretended to retreat, limping away from the alien fleet. Some ships were so badly damaged, they weren't pretending at all. Admiral Korath watched the human retreat with satisfaction. "They're finally learning. Follow them. We'll finish this quickly, and then deal with the planet." The Draconian fleet moved closer to Earth, exactly where Dr. Rodriguez needed them to be. The alien ships formed a bombardment formation, preparing to destroy every major city on the planet. "Admiral," Dr. Rodriguez said into her radio, "I need 15 more minutes." "I don't know if we have 15 minutes," Admiral Carter replied. His flagship was burning, and he was down to his last few operational ships, but the human fleet held on. They fought with everything they had, knowing that the fate of their entire species depended on buying just a little more time. On Earth, people in the evacuation centers watched the battle on their screens. They saw their brave defenders fighting against impossible odds. Many people cried. Others prayed. All of them hoped Dr. Rodriguez worked at her control panel, sweat dripping. Onto the keyboard. The satellites were charged and ready. The magnetic field generators were online. Everything depended on the next few minutes. "Ready?" she asked her team. Dr. Roberts and Dr. Clark nodded. They had done everything they could. "Then let's save the world," Elena said, and reached for the activation switch. High above Earth, the Draconian fleet prepared to end the battle. Their weapons charged for the final bombardment. Admiral Korath smiled as he prepared to add another world to his list of conquests. But he had never faced humans before. He had never encountered a species that would turn their entire planet into a weapon. He was about to learn why that was a mistake. The battle had been going on for 18 hours. Captain Roy Jackson's ship was barely holding together. Smoke filled the bridge, and sparks flew from damaged control panels. "Captain," Linda Price called out, "we're down to our last weapons." Roy looked at the tactical display. The human fleet had started with 50 ships. Now only 20 remained. But something incredible had happened. The mighty Draconian fleet had lost 50 ships too. How is that possible? Pete Walker asked. Amazed. "We're supposed to be the weak ones." Roy smiled grimly. "Because we're fighting for our home. They're just fighting for conquest." The human ships had used every trick they could think of. They turned asteroids into missiles. They used Earth satellites as weapon platforms. They even crashed damaged ships into alien vessels. Admiral Vex Korath was getting angry. He had never lost so many ships to what he considered a primitive species. His perfect battle record was being ruined by humans. "How many ships have we lost?" he demanded. 50, Admiral," his second-in-command replied nervously. "The humans fight differently than any species we've encountered." "Different how?" "They don't retreat when they should. They sacrifice their ships to damage ours. They use their entire star system as a battlefield." Korath growled. "No matter. We still have 450 ships. They have less than 20. End this now." But the human resistance was about to change everything. Dr. Elena Rodriguez had been working non-stop in her laboratory. The electromagnetic field generators were finally ready. "All systems are charged," Dr. Carl Roberts reported. "The satellites are in position." Dr. Marie Clark looked at her calculations one more time. "Elena, this has never been tested on this scale. We're talking about reversing the entire magnetic field of Earth." "I know," Elena replied, "but if we don't try, everyone dies anyway." She opened a communication channel to Admiral Ben Carter. "Admiral, I need you to get the alien fleet into position. Can you make them think you're retreating?" Ben's voice crackled through the radio. "We can try, but my ships are barely functional." "You don't have to win," Elena said. "You just have to survive long enough for them to get closer to Earth." Admiral Carter looked around his damaged bridge. His ship was burning, and most of his crew was injured. But they were still fighting. "All ships," he broadcast, "we're going to make one final retreat. Draw them in close to Earth. Make them think we're beaten." It was the hardest order he had ever given. The human fleet began to fall back toward Earth, their ships trailing fire and debris. Some ships were so damaged they could barely move. Captain Roy Jackson's ship was one of the worst hit. The Defender had taken so much damage that it was held together by little more than hope. "Captain," Linda reported, "we're losing life support. We have maybe 30 minutes of air left." "Then we make those 30 minutes count," Roy replied. Lieutenant Commander Greg Adams led his stealth ships in one final mission. They weren't going to destroy the alien ships. They were going to plant something on them. "Remember," Greg told his pilots, "we need to get these electromagnetic beacons onto their hulls. It doesn't matter if we don't make it back." Pilot Officer Kate Moore understood the mission. She and her squadron were going to fly their ships directly at the alien vessels. It was a suicide mission, but it was the only way to save Earth. "For Earth," Kate said into her radio, and flew straight at the largest Draconian ship. Her small fighter dodged the massive energy weapons. The alien ship's defenses were designed for big battles, not tiny, fast ships. Kate's fighter slipped through the defensive fire and crashed into the hull. Just before impact, she activated the electromagnetic beacon. The device attached itself to the alien ship's hull and began sending out a signal. "Beacon 1 in place," Kate reported as her ship exploded. One by one, the human fighters made their sacrificial runs. Each pilot knew they were going to die, but they also knew they were saving billions of lives. The Draconian fleet moved into bombardment formation around Earth. Admiral Korath was pleased. The human fleet was broken. Now he could destroy the planet's surface and claim victory. "All ships, target the major population centers," Korath ordered. "We'll start with their capital cities." The alien ships charged their massive weapons. Each shot could destroy an entire city. There would be nowhere for the humans to hide, but Dr. Rodriguez was ready. She had been waiting for this moment. The alien ships were exactly where she needed them to be. "All beacons are in place," she announced to her team. The electromagnetic field generators are at full power. It's time to turn Earth into a weapon. She looked at the activation switch. Everything depended on this moment. If her calculations were wrong, the electromagnetic pulse would destroy Earth's technology along with the alien ships. "Elena," Dr. Roberts said quietly, "are you sure about this?" "No," she replied honestly, "but we're out of other options." President Jake Morrison's voice came over the radio. "Dr. Rodriguez, you have permission to activate the defense system. Save our world." Elena took a deep breath and flipped the switch. Effect was immediate and terrifying. Earth's magnetic field, which had protected the planet for millions of years, suddenly reversed. The change created an electromagnetic pulse that spread outward from the planet like a wave. The pulse hit the draconian ships in seconds. Their advanced quantum systems, which had made them the most powerful force in the galaxy, suddenly became their greatest weakness. The electromagnetic energy flowed through the beacons that the human pilots had sacrificed their lives to place. The alien ship's own power systems began to overload. "What's happening?" Admiral Korath shouted as his ship's lights began to flicker. "Unknown energy wave," his technical officer reported. "It's interfering with our quantum processors." The draconian ships began to lose power. Their weapons stopped charging. Their shields flickered and died. Their engines went silent. In the space of 5 minutes, the most feared fleet in the galaxy became helpless. Captain Roy Jackson watched from his dying ship as the alien vessels went dark one by one. "I don't believe it," he said. "It's actually working." The electromagnetic pulse continued to spread through the alien fleet. The draconian ships, which had been preparing to destroy Earth, now floated helplessly in space. But something else was happening. Dr. Rodriguez watched her readings with growing concern. The alien ships weren't just losing power. They were beginning to phase in and out of normal space. "What's going on?" Dr. Clark asked. "The quantum systems aren't just failing," Elena realized. "They're creating a feedback loop. The ships are being pulled into subspace." The draconian vessels began to flicker like ghosts. Their solid metal hulls became transparent. The interaction between Earth's electromagnetic field and their quantum technology was tearing them out of normal reality. Admiral Korath felt his ship shaking apart around him. The walls became see-through. He could see stars through the floor. "What have they done to us?" he whispered. On Earth, people watched in amazement as the alien ships began to disappear. The massive vessels that had threatened to destroy their world were fading away like mirages. Dr. Rodriguez realized what was happening. The electromagnetic pulse has created a quantum cascade. Their ships are being pulled into subspace. They're disappearing from our reality. Can we stop it? Dr. Roberts asked. "I don't think so," Elena replied. "And I'm not sure we should. This might be the only way to make sure they never come back." The remaining human ships watched in wonder as their enemies vanished. Captain Roy Jackson's crew cheered, even though their own ship was falling apart. "We did it," Linda said, tears in her eyes. "We actually did it, but the celebration was cut short. The electromagnetic pulse had damaged the human ships too. Many were losing power and falling toward Earth." "All ships," Admiral Carter broadcast, "prepare for emergency landing. We're going home." The battle was over. The draconian fleet was gone, but the cost had been enormous. 30 human ships had been destroyed. Thousands of brave men and women had died. As the surviving ships limped back to Earth, people around the world came out of their hiding places. They looked up at the sky where the alien ships had been. The stars looked different now. They looked safe. The electromagnetic pulse had ended, but its effects were still spreading through space. The mighty draconian fleet, which had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, was trapped in a quantum flux that made their ships flicker in and out of reality. Captain, Roy Jackson's ship was falling toward Earth. The Defender had taken too much damage to stay in orbit. Pete Walker worked frantically to keep the engines running long enough for them to reach the surface safely. "We're going to crash," Linda Price said, looking at the readings. "No," Roy replied firmly. "We're going to land. There's a difference." The ship broke through Earth's atmosphere like a falling star. People on the ground watched as their Defenders came home. The Defender hit the ocean with a tremendous splash, but the crew survived. Other human ships were having similar problems. The electromagnetic pulse had damaged their systems too, but they were lucky. They were falling toward their home planet, where rescue teams were waiting. Admiral Ben Carter's flagship managed to land at a military base. Ben climbed out of his damaged ship and looked up at the sky. The stars were clear. There were no alien ships anywhere. "We did it," he said to himself. "We actually did it." But the victory came with a mystery. The Draconian ships hadn't just been destroyed. They had vanished completely. Dr. Elena Rodriguez was trying to figure out what had happened. "The quantum cascade is still active," she told her team. "The alien ships are being pulled deeper into subspace." Dr. Carl Roberts looked at the readings. "How is that possible?" "The electromagnetic pulse only lasted 5 minutes. Their quantum systems created a feedback loop," Elena explained. "It's like a whirlpool in space-time. Once it started, it couldn't be stopped." Meanwhile, teams of Marines were boarding the few Draconian ships that were still partially solid. Colonel Dan Mitchell led one of these teams onto Admiral Korath's flagship. The alien ship was like a nightmare. The walls were transparent in some places and solid in others. The floors shifted between metal and empty space. It was like walking through a ghost ship. "Stay together," Dan ordered his men. "Don't touch anything that looks unstable." They found Admiral Korath in his command center. The proud alien leader was trapped in a chair that was half in normal space and half in subspace. He looked terrified. "What have you done?" Korath demanded when he saw the humans. "We defended our home," Dan replied. "Something you should understand. This is impossible. Your species is primitive. You don't have this technology." Dan smiled. "That's where you made your mistake. You underestimated us." Commander Nick Turner arrived to question the captured alien. Korath was one of the few Draconian survivors who wasn't disappearing into subspace. "Tell me about your empire," Nick said. Korath laughed bitterly. "You think you've won? This was just one fleet. The Empire has thousands of ships. But none of them are here," Nick pointed out. "And now the whole galaxy knows that the mighty Draconian fleet can be defeated." The alien's expression changed. He hadn't thought about that. His empire's power was based on fear. If other species learned that humans had defeated them, rebellions would start everywhere. Dr. Rodriguez arrived to study the quantum effects on the alien ship. She found technology that was centuries ahead of anything humans had built. "This is incredible," she said to her assistant, Dr. Marie Clark. "Their quantum computers are biological. They're alive." "Is that why the electromagnetic pulse affected them so badly?" Marie asked. "Yes. We didn't just overload their machines. We hurt their living computers." As Elena studied the alien technology, she realized something important. The Draconian ships weren't just disappearing. They were being pulled into a parallel dimension where the laws of physics were different. "We need to document everything," she told her team. This technology could change everything for humanity, but time was running out. The alien ships were becoming more transparent every hour. Soon, they would be gone completely. President Jake Morrison arrived at the crash site to see the victory for himself. He walked through the debris of the battle, thinking about all the people who had died to save Earth. "Mr. President," General Lisa Hayes said, "We need to make some decisions. The world is asking what happens next." Jake looked up at the sky. "What do you mean?" "The aliens came from somewhere. They have an empire. We need to be ready for them to come back." Jake nodded. "You're right. But first, we need to understand what we just did. Dr. Rodriguez, how long do we have before the ships disappear completely?" Elena checked her readings. "Maybe 12 hours. The quantum cascade is accelerating. Then we work fast. I want everything possible recovered from those ships. Technology, weapons, star charts, everything." Teams of scientists and engineers worked around the clock. They removed computers, weapons, and navigation systems from the alien ships. Each piece of technology was like finding treasure. Tony Walsh, one of Earth's best engineers, was amazed by what they found. These power systems are incredible. They can generate energy from space itself. Rachel Kim, a computer specialist, was studying the alien data systems. Their star charts show thousands of planets. The Draconian Empire is huge. But the most important discovery came from the alien medical bay. Dr. Rodriguez found biological samples that showed how the Draconian quantum computers worked. They use living tissue to process quantum information, she explained. It's like their ships have brains. "Is that why they're so powerful?" asked Dr. Roberts. "Yes, but it's also why they're vulnerable to electromagnetic pulses. We didn't just damage their technology. We gave their ships a massive headache." As the hours passed, the alien ships became more and more transparent. Admiral Korath's flagship was now barely visible. The alien commander himself was starting to fade. "Please," Korath begged his captors, "don't let me disappear. I'll tell you everything about the Empire." Nick Turner looked at the fading alien. "Even if we wanted to help you, we don't know how. Your own technology is pulling you into subspace. There must be a way. Your scientists reversed our quantum field. They can reverse it again." But Dr. Rodriguez shook her head. "The process is irreversible. The quantum cascade has created a permanent tear in spacetime. Your ships are falling through it." As the sun set on Earth, the last of the Draconian ships began to disappear. The massive vessels that had threatened to destroy humanity faded away like ghosts. People around the world watched the sky as their enemies vanished. Children pointed at the empty space where the alien fleet had been. Adults hugged each other in relief. Captain Roy Jackson, now recovered from his crash, stood on the beach where his ship had landed. The ocean was calm. The stars were peaceful. "It's over," Linda Price said, standing beside him. "No," Roy replied. "It's just beginning. The galaxy knows about us now. Things will never be the same." He was right. On distant worlds, other species were hearing about the battle. The news spread through the galaxy like wildfire. The unstoppable Draconian fleet had been defeated by a species that had barely left their home planet. Some alien races celebrated. Others were frightened. All of them were curious about these humans who had done the impossible dot in the Draconian Empire. Empress Zara Vex received the news with disbelief. Her best fleet was gone. Her most feared admiral was missing. A primitive species had humiliated her empire. "Send scout ships to this Earth," she ordered. "I want to know what happened." But when the scout ships arrived, they found only empty space where the fleet should have been. There was no evidence of the battle, except for some debris floating near the moon. The humans were still there, still alive, still defiant. Their planet looked peaceful and quiet. It was hard to believe that such a place could have destroyed 500 warships. Back on Earth, the celebration was mixed with sadness. The victory had cost many lives. Memorials were built for the brave pilots who had sacrificed themselves to place the electromagnetic beacons. Dr. Rodriguez stood in her laboratory, looking at the alien technology they had recovered. It would take years to understand it all, but already she could see the possibilities. "What are you thinking?" Dr. Clark asked. "I'm thinking that we're not the same species we were a week ago," Alina replied. "We've proven we can defend ourselves. Now we need to prove we can explore the galaxy." The last Draconian ship flickered and vanished into subspace. With it went the last evidence of the battle, except for the memories of those who had fought. Galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had announced its presence in the most dramatic way possible. They had defeated the undefeatable and survived the impossible. The age of human expansion was about to begin. 6 months had passed since the Draconian fleet vanished into subspace. The galaxy was still talking about what had happened at Earth. On 1,000 different worlds, alien species whispered the same question. How did the humans do it? Dr. Elena. Rodriguez stood in her new laboratory, which was 10 times bigger than her old one. The recovered Draconian technology covered every table and filled every computer. She had been working day and night to understand how it all worked. "Any progress?" asked Dr. Carl Roberts as he entered the lab. "More than I hoped," Elena replied with excitement. "Look at this." She showed him a small device that glowed with blue light. "It's a quantum communicator. With this, we can send messages across the galaxy instantly." "That's impossible," Carl said. "Nothing travels faster than light." "Nothing in our dimension," Elena corrected. "But this sends signals through subspace, the same place where the Draconian ships disappeared." Meanwhile, President Jake Morrison was dealing with a very different kind of problem. Every day, ships from alien species arrived near Earth. Some came to trade. Others came to learn. A few came to see if the stories about humanity were true. Ambassador Helen Cross had the difficult job of meeting with all these aliens. Her office was always full of strange creatures from distant worlds. The Altarian Republic wants to form an alliance, Helen told Jake during their morning meeting. They're offering to share their medical technology. "What do they want in return?" Jake asked. "They want to know how we defeated the Draconians. Everyone wants to know that." Jake sighed. It was the same request from every alien visitor. They all wanted to learn the secret of Earth's victory. On the other side of the galaxy, Empress Zara Vex was having her own problems. 3 star systems had rebelled against Draconian rule. They had heard about humanity's victory and decided to fight for their freedom. "Send the Second Fleet to crush these rebels," she ordered her admirals. "Your Majesty," one admiral said carefully, "the Second Fleet is afraid to fight." They heard what happened to Admiral Korath's ships. Zara's red eyes blazed with anger. "They're afraid of humans?" Impossible, but it was true. A Draconian military was paralyzed by fear. No admiral wanted to be the next to disappear into subspace. Back on Earth, Captain Roy Jackson had a new job. He was now Admiral Roy Jackson, commander of humanity's first deep space exploration fleet. His new ship, the New Horizon, was built using both human and Draconian technology. "Ready for our first mission?" asked Linda Price, who was still his tactical officer. "As ready as we'll ever be," Roy replied. "Pete, are the new engines online?" "Engineer." Pete Walker grinned. "Sir, these quantum drives can take us anywhere in the galaxy in days instead of years." The New Horizon was humanity's first starship capable of traveling between star systems quickly. It was built in secret using the technology recovered from the vanished Draconian fleet. Dr. Rodriguez had spent months studying the alien quantum drives. With help from engineer Tony Walsh and computer specialist Rachel Kim, she had figured out how to make them work with human technology. "The quantum field generators are stable," Tony reported from the engine room. "Navigation systems are online," Rachel added from her station. Admiral Roy Jackson looked at his crew. They were about to make history. Humanity was about to leave their solar system for the first time, using faster-than-light travel. "Take us out," Roy ordered. The New Horizon jumped to quantum speed. One moment they were near Earth, and the next, they were traveling between the stars. The crew watched in amazement as distant suns streaked past their windows. Their destination was Alpha Centauri, the closest star system to Earth. If there was life there, humanity would make first contact. As equals, not as primitives begging for help. While the New Horizon explored space, Dr. Rodriguez made another breakthrough. She had been studying the quantum effects that made the draconian ships disappear. What she found changed everything. The ships didn't just vanish, she told President Morrison. They're still out there, trapped in subspace. What does that mean? Jake asked. It means we created a prison that spans multiple dimensions. The draconian fleet is stuck there forever. Dr. Marie Clark, who had been helping with the research, looked worried. Elena, what if other species learned to do what we did? They could trap anyone in subspace. Elena nodded. That's why we need to be very careful about sharing this technology. In the wrong hands, it could be used to make entire planets disappear. The news of humanity's growing power spread through the galaxy. Some species were impressed. Others were frightened. A few were jealous. The Zorvik Confederation, a group of warlike aliens, decided to test humanity's defenses. They sent a small fleet toward Earth to see how humans would respond. Admiral Ben Carter, now in charge of Earth's defenses, detected the approaching ships. There were only 20 vessels, much smaller than the draconian fleet, but still dangerous. Should we use the electromagnetic pulse again? Asked Colonel Amy Stewart. No, Ben replied. We need to show the galaxy that we have other ways to defend ourselves. The human defense fleet met the Zorvik ships near Jupiter, but this time the battle was different. Human ships now had quantum shields and energy weapons based on draconian technology. The Zorvak aliens expected an easy victory against primitive humans. Instead, they found themselves outmatched by superior technology. Surrender now, Admiral Carter broadcast to the alien fleet, or we'll send you to join the Draconians in subspace. The Zorvik commander had heard the stories about the vanished Draconian fleet. He quickly ordered his ships to retreat. We surrender, came the alien response. Please don't make us disappear. Word of humanity's second victory spread even faster than the first. Now every species in the galaxy knew that humans could defend themselves against any threat. Commander Nick Turner, now Director of Galactic Intelligence, received reports from across the galaxy. Everywhere, alien species were changing their policies toward humanity. The Regellian Empire wants to establish an embassy on Earth, Nick reported to President Morrison. So do the vegan colonies and the Sirius Trade Federation. What about the Draconian Empire? Jake asked. They're falling apart. Half their territories have declared independence. The other half are asking humans for protection. It was true. The mighty Draconian Empire was collapsing. Without their feared First Fleet, they couldn't control their vast territories. Planet after planet was breaking free. Some of these liberated worlds sent messages to Earth, thanking humanity for showing them that the Draconians could be defeated. The New Horizon returned from its first mission with amazing news. Alpha Centauri had 3 planets with intelligent life. All 3 species wanted to meet with humanity as equals. They call us the Fleet Vanishers, Admiral Roy Jackson reported. They've already heard about what we did to the Draconians. Dr. Rodriguez continued her research into quantum technology. She discovered that the electromagnetic pulse had done more than just trap the Draconian ships. It had opened doorways to other dimensions. We might be able to travel to parallel universes, she told her team, or find new sources of energy that don't exist in our reality. But with great power came great responsibility. Elena knew that humanity needed to be careful. The same technology that had saved Earth could destroy it if used wrongly. President Morrison addressed the United Nations for the first time since the battle. Representatives from every country on Earth listened as their leaders spoke about humanity's future. 6 months ago, we were alone in the universe, Jake said. Today, we're members of a galactic community. We've proven that humans can defend themselves and explore the stars. But we must remember why we fought. We didn't fight for conquest or glory. We fought for our families, our freedom, and our future. As we explore the galaxy, we must carry those values with us. The audience applauded. Around the world, people watched their president promise that humanity would use its new power wisely. In her laboratory, Dr. Rodriguez received a message that made her smile. It was from Admiral Korath, the Draconian commander who had been trapped in subspace. The message was brief. Your species has surprised the galaxy. Perhaps that is what the universe needed. Elena realized that even their enemies respected what humanity had accomplished. They had done more than win a battle. They had changed the balance of power in the galaxy. Years would pass before the full impact of humanity's victory became clear. The Draconian Empire would completely collapse. Dozens of new democracies would rise from its ashes. Trade and communication between species would increase dramatically. But the most important change was in how the galaxy viewed Earth. Humans were no longer seen as primitive newcomers. They were respected as equals who had proven themselves in the greatest test possible. Captain Roy Jackson, now exploring distant galaxies with his quantum-powered fleet, often looked back toward Earth, the blue planet that had seemed so small. And helpless was now the center of galactic attention. Humanity had started as defenders of their home world. Now they were explorers, teachers, and leaders in a galaxy that was no longer dominated by fear. The disappearance of the Draconian fleet had shocked the galaxy. But what came after would amaze it even more. Humanity had found its place among the stars, and the universe would never be the same. On Earth, children learned about the battle in school. They heard about the brave pilots who